Hello and welcome to the Clashing of Steel. So last week, during Thursday, there was a small update. It brought with itself a couple of changes and fixes. But my concern here is what it did to the low tier matches. It forces tier 1s and 2s into PvE matches. It was really disappointing for my friend to start playing on the low tiers once again. He did play in the closed beta, but what was probably the most disappointing part was how many matches you had to do to get out of those first two tiers. From tier 1 to tier 2 it took a minimum of 2 matches. And from tier 2 to get to tier 3 you had to do around 5 to 10 matches, depending on how well you play and if you know what to do. Perhaps that wasn't even the worst part. Biggest problem was that PvE scenario didn't teach you anything. Those bots just engaged the first target they saw. They didn't flank, they didn't do anything. They didn't teach you anything, it was just like mindless slaughter. It was just a waste of time. And for my friend, this pointless PvE scenario actually somewhat turned him off the game. And because they're bots, the engagement outcomes don't surprise me, and it is just mindless slaughter. So I did a couple of matches with him on the tier 1s and 2s, and a couple alone as well. The outcome of each battle didn't surprise me, and I can totally understand why new players might be turned off from this game. Personally, I can understand why they did this change. There aren't enough players on first two tiers, or at least new players, or new commanders, so they thought giving PvP element starting tier 3 was a viable solution. That way tier 1 and 2 matches require a lot less players to start. Personally, I do not support this decision. It would have been a lot better if they would have just given us access to the first 3 tiers. Perhaps even a better solution would have been just to remove the first 2 tiers. We passed them in a matter of hour, maybe 2 hours. And starting with tier 3, progression to tier 4 would definitely take some time. Already players on first 4 or perhaps even 5 tiers make the same mistakes over and over again. Sometimes even up to the higher tiers. So it wouldn't change that much. Personally, I've always felt that the first 2 tiers are somewhat pointless. You play in them, you only have one commander skill, maybe unit skills. But in overall, in the first 2 tiers, the battle outcomes feel mostly random. Well, this is just my opinion. I really hated that they removed the PvP element from the first 2 tiers, but I can understand the reasoning behind it. And when I did play on the low tiers, I was disappointed. The bots acted really bad. Of course I didn't expect them to act like real irrationally or real heavy tactical like. Lobbing and stacking worse than many players. Many times the spearmen were just standing directly in one location, you engaged them, they did nothing. They didn't use phalanx, they didn't engage you. What's the point of these low tier matches when they don't teach you anything, when you just have to grind through them? There is nothing practically for you to learn there. I could probably understand it if only tier 1s were forced into PvE. Tier 1 usually lasts a couple of games. So you would just learn how your units work, how to maneuver them, and so. Right now, the first 2 tiers are a painful grind. I haven't had less fun playing this game than I did have playing on those first 2 tiers against bots. Victory is not as sweet and defeat is not as painful. We might as well just remove these 2 first tiers and then just add extra tutorials instead of them, teaching how to flank, how to maneuver, how to act. Painting a big picture for new players, for them to understand how they should react to certain types of situations. Because what is happening right now on the low tiers, I don't support that. You might as well try to show them a bit more about the situations. That they shouldn't go head on in, that they should avoid going solo, that they should work with their team, spread their units, try to be aware of the situation. Something more that would teach them a bit more about the tactics and the situation. Just because there are so many players, not even on the lower tiers, many on the higher tiers, who don't understand what to do, how to act. They don't communicate and they go head on in mindlessly. And because of that, they end up dying, losing, perhaps even sometimes crying. As it is understandable on the low tiers, many of these players actually progress higher and higher, and some of them haven't still learned anything, even if they reach tier 7s or 8s or so. So the problem is with these bot games on the lower tiers that they don't teach you anything useful. But when you play player versus player, you get some conflicts, you get some situations where you do really well, and you get other situations where you do really bad. Most players will evolve, playing and learning. They will evolve based on situations they are dropped in. But I don't see that happening when you are dropped into your first 10 matches against the bots. And because of that, it is just a grind. As you see throughout this video, there isn't practically any tactics involved. A random lobbing struggle match with pretty much nothing to learn. Like a painful mindless charge towards the opponent's base, and this game was won. Well, maybe I'm just a veteran player and I see this as a waste of space. And instead would like to see a better solution than we have right now. I have to say that even queue time for these low tier matches was pretty much non-existent. Not more than 30 seconds, at least for me. So this was pretty much it. Instead of making new players fight against bots, we should teach them a bit more. And perhaps then the low tiers wouldn't seem like such a random mix of units and situations. As I said, this is just my opinion, and there probably are better solutions for this type of problem. I could understand there being a PvE option for players who do want to play PvE, but forcing us all into it, that's just a bit too much. For me, it just made the low tiers feel like an endless pointless grind. Anyways, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.